In the Great Demon War of 1,000 years ago, one day, suddenly singers crossed the front lines to attack humans, and humans fought back for their survival. An endless, crueling war continued. The ground was stained with blood, and faced with the surging horde of beasts, humans were gradually overwhelmed. Then, a magician appeared. The magician rode a black dragon across the battlefield, vanquishing the beasts. His overwhelming presence made the beasts tremble in fear, and humans hailed him as their hero. But the magician met an enigmatic death at the climax of the Great Demon War. The chosen one, the one obsessed with strength, the one who resists the lure of corruption, has been long awaited by someone. Right now, citizens are busy watching the 17th title defense by the world champion over their phones. The championship was about to start. The arena was full of fans, and the challengers were being called. In the blue corner was Patrick. When his name was called, his fans cheered for him and told him to kill his opponent. From the red corner, a guy who already had 37 fights and won all those 37 fights. He was the 100% world champion, Jin-ho. The people around were curious to see how today's match would play out as they noticed that Jin-ho hasn't been using his legs in recent fights. According to the announcer, there was an interview with Patrick predicting a leg injury, and it turned out that Patrick plans to target that weakness of Jin-ho today, especially since Jin-ho is actually in his 40s. If Jin-ho's leg injury is real, people expect that a world champion might be born today. Now, both players were preparing to fight. The referee was already standing in their middle. The announcer then declared that the match had begun. Now, Patrick was puzzled as he felt an overwhelming presence from Jin-ho. Because of that, Patrick can say that Jin-ho is truly a champion, but he believes he could defeat him by targeting his legs. They then charged at each other, while Patrick was thinking that his opponent, Jin-ho, was arrogant for coming out with an injured leg against him. He was confident that he could make Jin-ho never use his legs again. In an instant, he easily caught Jin-ho's leg, but blood splattered as it turned out that he was kicked by Jin-ho's picture-perfect spinning back kick. Patrick is unable to get up. A shocking first-round knockout happened. You got it? This is why you don't use your legs. Meanwhile, Jin-ho wore a jacket and was leaving. While he was walking, his coach called him, asking him if he was holding a press conference. But Jin-ho told him to handle it himself. The coach tried to force him, but Jin-ho cut him off and stated, "Take care, and let me know when your next match is set." The coach doesn't have a choice but to accept Jin-ho's response and tells him to take a car since the weather outside is dreadful. But he was dumbfounded since Jin-ho replied that the weather was perfect for him to run with the traffic jammed. Jin-ho then left the door closed, and his coach tried to chase him, reminding him that it was 30 kilometers from there to his house. But when the coach opened the door, he saw reporters waiting for him. The reporters asked him too many questions, and they were also asking where Jin-ho was. His coach just sighed, hoping that he could at least understand Jin-ho's mindset. Right now, Jin-ho was really running in the rain, heading to his house. Jin-ho started his career with KO. He always finishes the match with K.O. and always claims the victory. Until the day he retires, his coach believes there won't be another opponent who can truly thrill him. During the interview, the coach stated that Jin-ho claimed he brought the penalty upon himself. After a few hours of running, Jin-ho arrived at the condominium where he stayed. He rode in an elevator and reached the floor of his room, which is the 34th. When he arrived, there were gifts at his door. It might be from his fans. He then entered. His house was very spacious. He took a bath and immediately went to his PC and sat. He then uttered, "Now shall we begin?" He was widely smiling due to his excitement of playing his favorite game, which is The Last Survivor, a console PC game. A game so brutally difficult that even Korean players have given up. But Jin-ho has played it every single day for the past 10 years without missing a day. Constant training and relentless honing, with the goal of battling even stronger opponents, thought that drive had long faded in reality. Perhaps he still can't beat it today? He uttered. Here, he can feel that thrill once more, the spirit of a challenger. Right now, his character is facing the Demon King Azar. "Bring it on, you bastard," he said. His character's weapon is a sword. While he was playing, the rain continued to pour outside. However, Jin-ho ignored it and focused on the game. Azar's health is too low, which made Juno believe that this Demon King would be now gonna get wrecked. He swung his sword, and he giggled, telling his character to put some strength into his attack. He attacks Azar once again, and teases him that he cannot dodge his attack anymore. He swung his sword several times as he slashed at Azar. He only deals with simple patterns, but his attack lands so perfectly. His slashes had an azure effect, and a tiger-like creature appeared, and he attacked it to Azar. A challenge begun out of the desire to win, yet an ironic twist where the fear of victory takes hold. With words of encouragement telling the Demon King that he could do it and a dazzling display of technique, he finally released his full blow and completely eliminated Azar. The system window then appeared, congratulating him for defeating Demon King Azar. The system also thanked him for playing the game. Jin-ho has become the champion of 2 worlds. After completing the game, he sighed and wondered who he should fight next. All of a sudden, a blinding golden light emerges in the sky together with the heavy rain. A strong lightning strike caught Jin-ho's attention. The lightning strike hit his condo, which caused him to pass out. When he regained consciousness, he felt dizzy and sensed his whole body was burning. He noticed that the rain was pouring on him. He looked at the ground and was confused about how he appeared outside. Someone then grabbed his shoulder and called him 218. He turned his head behind, and his looks became shockingly different. "I've been calling you since earlier. What are you doing? There's no time for this. We have to get out of here immediately," a yellow-haired guy said to Jin-ho. Jin-ho was confused who this guy was. Then he saw on the guy's name tag, which is 172. "Where is this?" he asked. He looked around and saw many people running in the rain. They seemed to be in prison as they were wearing orange clothes. As he looked at the gate in front of them, he noticed a flag with a familiar symbol. It's just that he cannot recall where he saw it. Hey, get a grip. Do you want to rot here for the rest of your life? They say today might be your last chance. The final opportunity to escape the loathsome carry-on, 172 stated while holding Jin-ho's shoulder. Jin-ho was shocked upon hearing it, as he now realizes that the place is called carry-on. He was dumbfounded and speechless. 172 is telling him not to waste his time dawdling and to move quickly. He was kneeling on the ground, thinking if he was just dreaming. But as he looked in front, he knew that the feeling he felt wasn't like a dream. He then concludes he might have been sucked into the game he was playing as a prisoner. Every detail was full of questions, but he forgot them for now as he knew he needed to get out of this area first. 172 was pulling his hand. He told 172 to wait for a moment, but 172 was annoyed and told him to cut out. Jin-ho then told 172 that it seemed odd as he concluded this place shouldn't be too sloopy if this really is carry-on. 172 then replied that it is because Chief Clark isn't around. The prisoners beat up the officers and tied them up. Since the chief wasn't around, they seized the opportunity to escape. 172 was shocked when Jin-ho pulled while running in other directions. The situation now makes sense to Jin-ho. But his champion's instincts are telling him they must never cross that door where the prisons were heading. As he was heading somewhere else, 172 asked him to let go of him. The gate opened, and the prisoners thought they were now free. Prisoners ran as fast as they could to escape, except for Jin-ho and 172. 172 wants to get out of the gate, but Jin-ho won't let him go. The prisoners were smiling as they thought they were now free, not until a blood splattered as it turned out that one prisoner's hand was cut by Chief Clark. Behind the chief were many officers. Clark was smiling as he looked at the prisoners who tried to escape. He then commanded his men to kill everyone. 172 and Jin-ho witnessed what had just happened. 172 was confused, so Jin-ho told him it was a trap. The prisoners ran back inside while screaming for help, but the killing had begun. Blood splattered around. Rain continued to pour, so the blood and water mixed on the ground. Many were killed, but there were some left, and Clark commanded his men to get the remaining guys in line. They gathered those remaining prisoners, including Jin-ho and 172. They were staring at the dead prisoners below them. 172 felt disgusted and vomited. One officer stood in front of him and grabbed his hair while reminding him that no one was allowed to move. Jin-ho feels pity for 172. He cannot accept the fact that the officers are no match even for a child. By this, Jin-ho already expected another massacre to break out at any moment. If that happens, he has no choice but to fight back. "I was lucky. No, wait, did I not even have the courage to run?" he uttered, but he was startled when he saw Chief Clark standing in front of him. You magicians are nothing but cowards. Just the thought of being rivals with you is humiliating," Clark stated. He leveled his head at Jin-ho's and told Jin-ho he would regret not dying today. Clark calls Jin-ho by the name Arahan and walks away. Jin-ho looked at his reflection on the water with blood below him. He was puzzled while realizing that his name is Arahan in this world. A week passed, and Jin-ho slowly adopted the life he was living right now. The only routine in this camp is stacking stone towers, a meaningless task designed solely to torment the prisoners. After living here for several days, he has learned a few things about his body. First, that even if he's frail, he can be downright feeble. He's completely winded just from moving a single stone. He's about 15 years old. And then the use of magic, he tried it secretly at night, but he got no result. It was strange for him that he could not use magic at all, knowing that the Arahan family is renowned for producing the best magicians, so it made no sense to him that he couldn't use magic even if he tried many times. Now, he deduces that it might be the reason why he was abandoned here. Also, he was aware that the Arahan family did have plenty to spare. While thinking, he got startled when an officer came and ordered him to move the stone tower to the other side. Arahan carried a huge rock while the officer behind him was holding a stick and said, "Why are you dawdling like this? Hurry up, why aren't you moving?" It turned out that Jin-ho was staring at the system right in front of him, stating that synchronization was in progress, and it's clogging up with too much data. Its progress is 78%. Jin-ho was wondering when this synchronization will be finished. Meanwhile, prisoners ate their meals after finishing their jobs. The food was bread and soup that only disappointed Jin-ho, who believed that it was the reason he didn't become stronger despite doing exercise. 172 approached him, asking him if he was skipping his meal again today. Jin-ho decided to give 172 his bread and told him to eat up. 172 was so happy and ate the bread like he was hungry for a long time. Jin-ho was staring at him as he said that this guy was really something else since he was the only one who wasn't avoiding him. The ultimate mage lineage Arahan, there's a rumor about Arahan's signature red eyes. Those red eyes are said to be a curse earned from killing too many people. They say that if one meets those eyes, they're guaranteed to die. He and 172 are the same age and even share the same cell, so it seems they were on friendly terms before possession, even if Jin-ho doesn't remember it. But also, he wondered who this kid, 172, was here in Carry-On Detention Center. 172 suddenly told him he must be careful these days. Jin-ho then asked what he meant to say, and according to 172, the workloads had increased lately, and the other prisoners were all jostling around. Now Jin-ho realizes why every prisoner passing by seems so full of life these days. 172 warned Jin-ho about the prisoner leader, who is number 589, knowing that that guy is quite famous in the arena and got in killing people. Then, wouldn't it be dangerous for you to stick with me? Jin-ho said. Even so, since I've grown fond of you, I can't just ignore it. 172 replied. Jin-ho stood and told 172 that he was in the way, so he must get out. 172 was confused about what he was talking about all of a sudden. It turned out that Jin-ho sensed something was coming to him. Jin-ho turned around while telling 172 that it looked like the thing he was worried about was about to happen. 172 was terrified when he saw prisoner number 589. Prisoner number 589 was standing in front of them with his men. "Hey, Arahan, they say the reason our workloads have been increasing lately is because of you," 589 stated. "Is that so? If that's the case, I guess I'll use it as my workout," Jin-ho replied. 589 released his fist and strongly punched Jin-ho. 172 was scared, and he was stuttering as he uttered Jin-ho's prisoner number. But shockingly, Jin-ho was unharmed and managed to grab 589's collar. 589 was dumbfounded. Jin-ho was smiling at him and immediately hit him with his knee. 172 and the other prisoners were speechless with what they witnessed. However, Jin-ho was puzzled when he found out that his attacks were not working at all. 589 was still smiling at him while asking him what he was doing. 589 grabbed him and spun him around, then threw him to the wall. But then 589 was confused since Jin-ho was not visible due to the smoke. Jin-ho was just leaning on the wall and heard someone saying, "You're dead for today." Then, he noticed the system window appeared and a notification about synchronization progress showed up. It turned out that the synchronization had been completed. Of course, Jin-ho smiled, knowing it would give him an advantage. When the smoke slowly disappeared, Jin-ho saw the prison leader and his men standing in front. Azure smoke was coming out from Jin-ho. He clenched his fist and stood. A powerful aura wrapped his body. He stares at his fist and prepares his feet to fight. He was in his position as he was ready to show his strength and said, "Get back inside." He was smiling confidently, which challenged 589. For someone even abandoned by their own clan, what on earth is our young master so full of himself about? Jin-ho then told him to quiet down and get into him quickly. He teases 589, he was scared, and 589 then charges toward him, saying he will kill him. When 589 got near to Jin-ho then used his leg and kicked him. Jin-ho was puzzled when 589 caught his leg, and chuckled, then said that a little rat should know his place. But then, Jin-ho spun his body and perfectly hit 589's neck. 589 was confused about how it happened. He looked at Jin-ho, but Jin-ho attacked him once more by kicking his face. Blood splattered from 589's face. He kneeled on the ground as he got weaker, but Jin-ho didn't give him a chance to regain strength and kicked him again. 589 fell on the ground and passed out. Jin-ho then said, "This is why I try not to use my legs." 589's men then charged at Jin-ho altogether and wanted him to die in agonizing pain. Jin-ho took a step and stomped at the back of 589. The men of 589 paused since Jin-ho warned them not to move. Jin-ho was holding 589's huge hand and told the men that if they came closer, he would have 589 begging for food for the rest of his life. He commanded them to bring the warden, and the men of 589 were speechless and confused. None of them make a move, so Jin-ho scares them by saying he will rip the arm of their boss. One guy then ran outside the room, and Jin-ho then let go of 589, so 589 was grabbed by his men. 172 then also ran toward Jin-ho, and he was thrilled, asking Jin-ho when he learned those moves. They went back to their quarters, and when they arrived, 172 showed how amazed he was by Jin-ho's movement. He also noticed that Jin-ho was taller now than before. Jin-ho sat and told 172 he must also keep hoisting those stones. The fact is that he guessed the synchronization turned his real-life stats into game stats after all. Even so, compared to his real body, it's still like a kid. But he believes that the most important thing right now is the actual stat screen. As per the system, he's Zed Arahan in this world. A magician. His traits are S-rank poison immunity, S-rank immortal duelist, S-class tenacious challenger, S-class champion's noble soul, and S-class archmage's blessing. Right now, some of his stats have a penalty due to stunted growth. His strength is 100 but was deducted 50, the same to his agility and endurance. His perception is 100, and his mana is currently 0. He has been dying to see this actual stat for a while now. He was confused because his mana was 0 despite the fact that he was a magician, not just a magician but was Zed Arahan. He was annoyed at the system, blaming it for giving him such crappy stats and then transferring his consciousness. While tapping the system, 172 was wondering why he acted crazy since the system isn't visible to others. After a few minutes, Jin-ho decided to lay on his bed while thinking about how crappy his character was. He concludes he was discarded by the Banpunara clan, but if yes, it is not surprising for him at all knowing that the clan was heartless without a drip of empathy. He calmed himself and decided to think positively since he was still fortunate after all because of his other stats, which were all maxed at 100. Even though there's a stunted growth penalty, he believes that there's no way a body made of nothing but bones could possibly make effective use of 100 stat. He deduces that the penalty might be overcome with physical training, but the food is terribly lacking after all. But there are so many traits he has never seen before, and all of them are S-rank. The ones he knows are the ones he earns through gameplay like poison immunity and immortal duelists. If his mana isn't 0, he believes he might be an absolute character. Also, for his Archmage's blessing trait, he was sure this wasn't just for a show. He rises back and tells himself he'll learn about the rest in due time, and there are ways to fix the mana issue after all. At this moment, one officer told everyone to come out to those numbers who will be called. Numbers 114, 256, 891, and 2918. The 4 of them came out from their cell and headed somewhere. Upon seeing them, Jin-ho asked 172 who these people were. 172 then replied that those people were death row inmates, heading out for their final meal. In this prison, the final meal means those called prisoners will eat whatever they want before they die. Jin-ho smiled as he thought of something. 172 was surprised when Jin-ho asked him his name. 172 then happily replied that he's Ryu, and he stated that people from the streets don't have a clan, and that's why he doesn't have one. He asked Jin-ho's name, and he replied he was Zed Arahan. Jin-ho asked Ryu if he wanted to get out of this place, but Ryu asked him what he meant to say. As per Ryu, he doesn't have a plan of staying in this prison as he has reasons for leaving. Jin-ho then asked him if he had thought about how he escaped, and Ryu then answered that the only exit was the front gate, but the warden had the key. Jin-ho then deduces they have to take down the warden first to snatch the key, but Ryu tells him he's out of his mind as it turns out that the warden is a five-circle knight even if he's already retired. Officer Clark is the epitome of a knight filled with hatred for magicians. In the Last Savior universe, knights and magicians despise each other. Upon knowing that the warden is a retired five-circle knight, Jin-ho wondered if he can even win against him now. But there's another way, just steal from him. Jin-ho said. Ryu smiled as he answered that people from the streets learned how to pick pockets before they learn manners, but there are always too many eyes around the warden, so there's rarely a chance he could get the key. Jin-ho thought for a moment, and after a few seconds he smirked and uttered, "So that's how it is." He finally starts to get an idea of how they can escape from this prison. The next day, work begins so early. The prisoners were gathered, and the officers in charge told them that from today, they were ramping up the workload even more under the warden's order, and none of them were allowed to walk-run. The other prisoners complain, so the officer asks if they're rebelling against the warden's order. These guys, seriously, if they just stayed still. 589 proclaimed. But his mouth shut when the officer pointed a sword at his neck and said, "I was just passing on the warden's orders. If you have a problem, take it up with the warden." 589 raises his hands, while still complaining that the warden and officers are going too far without any reason. The officer then asked him if he still didn't know whose fault it was. Everyone then looked at Jin-ho, as they knew it was because of him. The officer cleared his throat and walked away, informing everyone he needed to step for a quick smoke. Right now, Ryu feels something is going to happen, so he warns Jin-ho, but Jin-ho is calm, telling him to stay away. He believes that Warden Clark is openly inciting a war and is trying to use the prisoners to kill him since he can't do it himself. For him, Clark is a so-called honorable knight pulling such stunts. At this moment, Ryu listened to him and ran away while thinking that he won't let the fight go like yesterday, even if the warden is on it. He doesn't want to let Zed die at this rate. Of course, the prisoners already intended to kill Jin, so they slowly walked toward him. "I do understand where you're coming from. It's just an unavoidable situation," Jin-ho said. The men charged toward him with anger. Jin-ho doesn't have a choice but to fight back using his knee. He instantly knocked out one guy, so everyone paused. Jin-ho then told them that this fight is good since he has been needing somewhere to vent his anger. He smiled and prepared his fist. He then challenged everyone to charge all at once. Of course, everyone was challenged and charged to him once again. The fight started again, and Jin-ho calmly fought back. He once dreamed of this in the octagon. He wished they'd stop attacking one by one and just go all in at once. Right now, he enjoys himself fighting without any worry. He knocked out a few men and then reminded everyone to go all out and charge aggressively. His eyes were too fast to sense the attack coming toward him, so he managed to dodge and fight back. He fought using his fists, and none of the prisoners was able to hit him. While he was fighting, Ryu was impressed watching at the corner. He could not believe what he saw, but he was disturbed when someone approached him from behind and told him to come over. Jin-ho doesn't have a clue that Ryu was approached by one prisoner. He continued fighting, angering his opponents. He deals a strong punch. He was satisfied by the exhilaration when he dodged an attack. After dodging, he easily hit the enemy's face, and he was thrilled when he landed a solid hit. He was addicted to that rush, that's why he got into martial arts. More men charged toward him, but the same thing happened. He knocked them down easily. He was smiling ironically, but someone called him and said, "It'd be better if you stopped rampaging and just died. Friends are precious." The one who talked was a thin, tall guy, and behind this guy was the one who got Ryu as they thought that they could make Jin-ho stop because of the kid. Ryu was uttering Zed's name. Jin-ho seriously looked at them, but then he suddenly smiled, which puzzled the two guys. You've made a huge mistake now. Jin-ho proclaimed. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. Till next time.